When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
All right, hello YouTube. Welcome back to the Grease Goblin YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to be talking about House of the Dragon. We're at the mid-season mark. Where are we at right now in terms of the show? What would I rate it? What are my thoughts about the first half of the season? And what do I want to see going forward in the next half of the season? But before we get further into that, if you did want to become a Patreon or a member, you do get videos early, and also you do get to see my House of the Dragon reviews for each episode and other stuff after House of the Dragon is done. But let's talk about the season. I think the thing that to me has defined the first half of the season is inconsistency. I think, you'll go from one episode where, it seems good, and then the ending just leaves you on a kind of a bitter ending where you're like, we could have done that a lot better. That could have been handled in a much different way, executed much better. And so it feels like, again, 50%, I would say right now in terms of the episodes have ended like that, right? The same thing that plagued season 1 was that 95% of the content was good, but they struggled with the big moments. They struggled on the endings. That's kind of continued into season 2. So hopefully as we go forward in the second half, we can fix that issue, but let's kind of talk about it right now so far in season 2. So you've had 2 episodes in episode 1 and 3 that I think have been very divisive. I've talked about them at lengths on this channel, but Blood and Cheese and also the meeting of Alicent and Rhaenyra in King's Landing. And both of the changes, I think to me, were not executed well. I think they could have been executed much better. I think Blood and Cheese is more like it was good. I think it works really well for the casual fan base, but as a book reader, someone that cares about this material a lot more, I see the potential of what the scene could have been, and it left a lot to be desired. And so as a book fan, I personally did not like Blood and Cheese that much. I thought it was fine. But again, a lot of missed, opportunities. And being the first episode of season 2, it was not a great start to the season. It was fine. It was good. I still gave it, I think, like an 8 out of 10. It was good. Everything was good outside, I think, of the Blood and Cheese moment, where I think it could have been much better and it could have been elevated. I think that's what we've kind of seen from, some of these episodes. Episode 1 and 3 have been very mixed bags because for terms of episode 1, you saw Jace and Rhaenyra and their embrace. It had so much emotion. Luke's funeral, all the repercussions of the things that happened at the end of the last season came to fruition here, and it was done quite well. I think there's been kind of minor gripes that I've had with this season. In terms of Rhaenyra's growth as a character has been very slow. We haven't leaned into more of the harsher or crueler side of Rhaenyra. We're still kind of developing that. It's going to be a bit more of a slow burn as the Rhaenyra-Alicent thing kind of put a little bit of a speed bump on that because we needed that moment to happen. Or at least the showrunners wanted that moment to happen before we could really dive into Rhaenyra as a character. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for in the next half of the season is we see Rhaenyra grow more as a character, or at least not grow, but almost deconstruct as a character, right? So that's what I'm kind of looking for with like a character from Rhaenyra. But then getting to episode 3, right? When we look at episode 3 in terms of the other episode I was not a huge fan of, episode 3 has Alicent and Rhaenyra meet back up, and that to me was not a good move. I think the execution of bringing Alicent and Rhaenyra back together I think they jumped the gun. Because they had been foreshadowing and alluding to this moment where Rhaenyra and Alicent were going to meet back up. I just think it was too early. I think there is a moment where, without getting into spoilers, where that could have happened later on in the show, and I think it would have worked much better, right? Because these characters hadn't been, separated for that long, right? It's been the end of episode 8 until the end of episode 3 of season 2. So I think it should have been left to grow a lot longer. Have it where, you have this conflict and that bitterness between the two kind of rising. And then you have a scene like they showed in the show kind of creep up there, right? So I think it was not handled the best. I think people just sneaking into King's Landing, every other episode is not a good look. It shrinks your world. It makes the world feel smaller in a lot of ways. Just wasn't a fan of how it was handled. Also, the other part of it seems like Rhaenyra has been gone days, so days have passed. But then with, for instance, Daemon, it seems like a couple hours passed in terms of him getting to King's Landing. It just seems very weird the way time works and how characters get to King's Landing and then get back. Very interesting dynamic. I know that's more of a problem for episode 4 in terms of Rhaenyra's transportation, but it's also an issue of this episode as well as episode 3. And so you have some of these negatives that kind of leave stains on episodes like episode 1 and 3, but then you have the flip side of it, where I think episode 2 and episode 4 handles their big moments perfectly, right? So you have the big moments that, like, the Cargill twins battle is great. It's built up to perfectly, the characters that are growing to this moment where you're having Aegon who wants action versus a character like Otto who wants patience and to try and gain peace and trying to gain allies and all these things. And Aegon doesn't want that. He wants action. And so you have that, which is great because it kind of shows the new governmental system, right? Of Kristen Cole coming into power and Otto on his way out. One of the best moments of the show so far, to me, one of the best scenes is Otto's dismissal as Hand of the King. Still holds up as, I think, probably up there as one of my favorite scenes of the season. And so you have all of that, which I thought was really good in episode 2. Episode 2 was just a great character building episode. I think a lot of characters, reacting to the blood and cheese moments, all of that worked really well. And then episode 4, which is the episode that came out this week, was really great, right? I thought Rook's Rest was handled beautifully, showing the dragons and the carnage that would occur on just the soldiers, the common people, whether that's dragons landing on the ground, whether it's breathing fire, they can kill hundreds of men in just a couple of minutes. It's like an arrow volley, but to the extreme, right? You can't dodge fire. You can't use your shield to protect you from the fire. You're just going to get burned to a crisp like we saw in episode 4. And so I think episode 4 was a great middle climax, right? It took everything that had been building up for the first half of the season and it kind of just exploded, right? Aegon, who this whole season has been trying to keep patient. He's been told and lectured over and over again of patience and all these things and inaction. And Aegon's tired of it. And so he does action, and that leads him to Rook's Rest. Aemond is a character who, as well, has been kind of lingering with his humanity. And finally, that breaks in episode 3, and all the trauma that his brothers instilled upon him of bullying comes out in episode 4, where Aemond kind of betrays his brother, if not blatantly betrays his brother. However, you kind of read the interpretation of that scene. Even kind of Rhaenyra, right? Where it's kind of that breaking of, now she's willing to throw a dragon on protecting, her allies, right? Where the peace is done. There is no peace. There's no chance of it. There's no words that is going to fix the solution. It's either we win or we die, right? It's Cersei's quote to Ned. And so I like the way that everything kind of came to fruition while also building up other characters that are going to be in the future, right? So the characters like Alan and Adam of Hull, like Ulf and Hugh, like Jace, who's already showing that he's gaining more responsibilities, gaining, having to come into more responsibilities now that Rhaenys is gone. How is that going to affect other characters? They're going to have to step up. How is that going to work with Rhaenyra and Corlys's relationship? Really, it was Rhaenys tying Corlys to Rhaenyra, not the other way around. So how is Corlys going to do that? Is that going to make their alliance a little bit more on edge, right? Because Corlys and Rhaenys had a pretty good relationship. They seemed very loving to each other, even though it seems like there's something maybe going on with this Alan of Hull character. I think everything works really well. And so this season, or the first half of this season, has left me in a really weird spot. Because I think overall the quality is good. Like what I talked about with season 1, the quality is good, but there's room for improvement. They have hiccups here and there that's kind of hurt the show. Episode 3 is, I think, the biggest example of this. I think episode 1, it works with blood and cheese, but could have been better. It fits into a good scene, but could have been great. Could have been like the Red Wedding-esque type scene, and it just wasn't that. So I think what I've kind of gathered from the first half of the season of House of the Dragon is it's kind of following the same trail as season 1 of it's good, but could be better. And so what do I expect and what do I hope we see from the second half of House of the Dragon, season 2? I hope we get consistency. I talked about this in my episode 4 review for my Patreons and members, but I want to feel more consistent. I want to know what I'm getting into in terms of House of the Dragon, because it feels like, one episode can be completely jarring and very divisive to the next episode, which is fantastic. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with House of the Dragon. So going forward, I hope we develop Rhaenyra's character more. I'm really looking forward to Daemon at Harrenhal and his arc going there. I really enjoy that we're going to see like kind of a self-discovery arc with Daemon, right? All of his past problems and trauma kind of catching up with him. You know, him grooming Rhaenyra, him always craving power and the throne, and his really weird relationship with his brother Viserys. I'm really interested to see where they're going to go forward with the character of Daemon, and I hope we just explore more of it. I love the way they've built Harrenhal as a character of its own. Really beautifully done. So I hope, again, my hopes, I'm going to reiterate this a lot. My hope is for season 2 to end on a strong note, to be more consistent, and end on a place where I think it actually improved upon House of the Dragon season 1. Because as of right now, I'd say we've kind of stayed around the same quality as House of the Dragon season 1, if not maybe slightly improved. Like if for instance, I would have gave House of the Dragon season 1 probably like an 8 to a 7.5, right? It was definitely a good starting point, but had its issues. I'd probably say House of the Dragon season 2 is around an 8, 8.5, kind of around the same rating right now. But that's my mid-season rating. We'll kind of revisit it when we get to the end of the season. And hopefully we end out strong. Let me know down in the comments what you guys have thought about House of the Dragon up to this point. And yeah, please keep it civil, by the way. I know we are all very passionate about House of the Dragon. Please try to be respectful of others' opinions and all of that. But thank you guys all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.